Just about 20 minutes after the hour of 7 o'clock, welcome back to the Now Morning Show. Now, self-forgiveness, mental health, and addictive and suicidal behaviors in the Caribbean. This is a research study that will commence in TNT shortly. The project will be spearheaded by both local and international researchers who joins us this morning to speak more about it. And so joining me on set this morning, we have the president of the University of the Southern Caribbean, Dr. Colwick Wilson. We also have Akeisha Alexis St. Hilaire, who is an adjunct lecturer also at the USC, and joining us on phone we have Dr. Sandra Reed, who joins us from Luther College. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is Lauren.
Hi,
Toussaint
morning.
from
Can you hear
Luther
me?
College.
Dr.
Yes, I
Laurent
can.
Toussaint?
Yes.
So I have Dr. Laurent Toussaint, and you are the professor of psychology at Luther College, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, nice. Dr. Toussaint, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I am coming straight to you because I wanted to know the Caribbean Self-Forgiveness and Flourishing Project. Can you speak some more to that?
Yeah. The project is really designed to be the premier project on forgiveness and especially self-forgiveness in the Caribbean. And we have the support of lots of partners and lots of support staff, and we're really excited to get started with the project. The Templeton World Charity Foundation is supporting this project financially, and we're very appreciative for their support.
Yeah. I mean, what are some of the outcomes, Dr. Toussaint, are we expecting to get from this particular project?
Well, first of all, we want to see if we can increase in some positive way self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is found to be one of those things that people oftentimes struggle with, and it's very important for your mental health as well as your overall well-being. We also think it's connected to substance use, and we know that it also has some impact on your overall longevity, that is, how long you live.
Right. Now, I'm coming to you, of course, Dr. Wilson, because I'm wondering about the partners. We're seeing that we have international and also regional lecturers coming together. And who are some of the partners and the purpose for this partnership?
Well, one of the things that we have been doing at USC is to develop and nurture local and international partnerships. So in this study, we have Dr. Toussaint from Luther College in the United States, who is actually the lead on this study. We have other partners at Texas Tech in Texas and Virginia Commonwealth in the United States.
Right.
And we have one other partner internationally, Dr. David Williams at Harvard University. And of course, we have a number of local consultants who are part of the study who have helped us shape the cultural context in a way that makes the study meaningful here in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, and I'm coming across to you, Mrs. St. Hilaire. The purpose of forgiveness, why was the decision chosen to focus on that particular topic?
Well, self-forgiveness in the context of Trinidad and Tobago, it hasn't been well established. When we speak about the REACH self-forgiveness model, it hasn't been well established here in Trinidad, so we are trying to focus on a workbook. That's the end goal, to focus on a workbook that we can use not just for Trinidad and Tobago, but for the wider Caribbean. So because it is an area that isn't well studied here as yet, we are hoping to lend our expertise and knowledge in that field so that we can have something that can help persons. You know, one of the outcomes we're looking at is, you know, substance abuse, suicidal behaviors and stuff like that. So if we can help in that regard, that would be awesome.
So then what is self-forgiveness? Is it as simple as saying, okay, I did something wrong and I forgive myself? Is it a process that you have to go through to forgive yourself? I mean, when we talk about self-forgiveness, what exactly are we trying to get to?
And I think Dr. Toussaint might be good to jump in on this question at this point.
Dr. Toussaint, we're coming to you.
Well, I think the important thing to know is that forgiveness in general, as well as self-forgiveness specifically, these are topics that just aren't very familiar to lots of people. And a big thrust of our work is to try to educate and make people familiar and really to understand best what we're asking when we ask people to forgive themselves, when we ask people to forgive others. These are things that although sometimes people are exposed to these topics in religion and sometimes have a general sense of their spirituality around these issues, it's really something that's very hard to confront. And so our main goal here is to try to raise levels of awareness and raise levels of experience of forgiveness.
Yeah. And Dr. Toussaint, I mean, how is self-forgiveness linked to mental health? Is it that when you forget yourself, you might be able to think more clearly? I mean, is there a connection between the two?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that we've studied for a number of years now, looking at that connection. Mental health benefits of self-forgiveness and forgiveness in general typically work through all kinds of important mechanisms like reducing shame and reducing guilt, sometimes reducing the amount of overthinking you do about either a time that somebody hurt you or a time that you hurt someone else. I know that people in Trinidad like the lime, and I think that forgiveness and self-forgiveness really support liming. That's the key, is important social networking and social relationships and community. The foundation of these things really is forgiveness, because the foundation is relationships. It's connections with people, and that's what forgiveness and self-forgiveness do.
Yeah. I can see that you've been speaking to some researchers from TNT with the lime word, Dr. Toussaint, so I appreciate you for using that as well. And then I guess my question to you, Dr. Colwick, and of course you as well, Ms. Tinhill, I can also take this one. I mean, how can we as Trinidadians and Tobagonians get to that place where we forgive ourselves?
Well, I think Trinidad and Tobago is known for strong relationships, strong bonds. And it's in those bonds, it's in those relationships that forgiveness serves as a powerful mechanism for healthier relationships. Yeah. And I think here in Trinidad and Tobago, understanding that there are a number of dynamics that come to play in forgiveness. People feel forgiven by whomever they see God to be. Right. People try to seek forgiveness if you wrong someone, and people actually then struggle with forgiving others. But more importantly, as Dr. Toussaint was saying, forgiving ourselves for when we do wrong. So in relationships, all of these dynamics happen. And sometimes we have to don't take ourselves too seriously, and recognize that we are imperfect. And it is in those imperfect moments that we have the opportunity to develop some perfect moments by forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, and actually seeking forgiveness.
But Dr. Colwick, we do live among perfectionists. We do live among the people who every day they strive for perfection. Of course, there's the saying, you strive for perfection, and if you fall below, that's still good. But there are people who want to be perfect. They want to strive towards that goal. Yeah. And so what do you tell someone like that who it's hard to forgive themselves because they realize they've fallen short?
No, you're right. There are people who live all of their lives holding on to things that they have done and seem to never have forgiven themselves. And so what we say to them through a process is to help them step by step to get to the place where they recognize that for their own health and well-being, that these are important tools that they have to cope with the realities of their imperfections. And I think people do realize that they're imperfect because we do make mistakes, and we do come to the point where we recognize that our behaviors don't match our own expectations. And so what a study like this, as Dr. Toussaint was saying, and Keisha supported, it helps us to recognize, to bring awareness to the fact that all of us, every last one of us, just so happen to be human. And the definition of being human is that we're imperfect. But we can create perfect moments. And one of those tools is through the benefits of self-forgiveness.
Self-forgiveness. Yes. Now, as it relates to the research that we're going to be having, and Dr. Toussaint, you can jump in as well. How are we going to be doing it in terms of sample size, in terms of getting the population to sort of get those questions from? Is that Dr. Toussaint? Or Keisha, you can jump in here? Yeah, sure.
So our research is going to take on 4 studies. The first study, this initial one, we're looking at a sample size of 100 persons from the community and 200 persons from the community and 200 persons from universities. So we're looking at the University of the Southern Caribbean, University of the West Indies, and any other university in Trinidad and Tobago. So persons from there can contribute to this study. We would see posters very soon at USC and at UE, and at various other universities as well, so that persons can find the link and scan the QR code so that they can get access to the survey. Study 2, 3, and 4. Study 2 is a smaller sample study, but we will get into the rest of these studies as we go along. You can see our information on our social media platforms. So far, we have a Facebook page. So our Facebook page, we can also find the link for the survey, the first study. Our Facebook page is the Caribbean Forgiveness and Flourishing Project. So you can visit that page and you can find a link there for persons who are part of the community, for persons who are university students. Well, you can also do that, or you can look at the posters that will be posted at the various institutions.
Now, Dr. Toussey, I'm coming to you because I know that we're starting this research in TNT soon, but are there any, has this been done in the U.S. or where you are right now? And are there any sort of particular trends that would have come out from a research if this wasn't done similar to this one?
Yeah, there's research on this topic. It's still very much new and growing area. And if you think about the long history of science, we've really only studied forgiveness and in particular self-forgiveness for maybe a decade or two. And so there is research that shows that you can teach people to forgive and they will actually get better at doing it. They'll increase their levels of forgiveness and self-forgiveness. Both of those have been evaluated scientifically doing the kinds of research that we're planning on doing in Trinidad and Tobago. So there is a very good kind of baseline here for us to work from to be able to generalize and extend this to areas of the Caribbean. And that's our plan. We'd like to start here in Trinidad and Tobago, and hopefully in years to come, we'll be doing this in several other places as well.
Yeah, and Dr. Toussey, the findings coming out of this research, is it that it's going to be published? Is it that it's going to be tailored to be used in some practical way?
Yeah, absolutely. We're aiming to make this publishable scientific work. We'll also be presenting it at professional conferences and reaching out as much as possible, doing things like this, trying to share with all of the residents of Trinidad and Tobago and also the broader region and across the world, really. So we're aiming for this to be good science that's first and foremost in our minds, but also we want this to be applicable for people who are just doing their normal daily routines and living normal life.
Nice. And Dr. Colwick, before we go, just tell us how soon we expect to see the research starting.
Well, we actually have a Facebook page that Keisha talked about, so we're ready to go.
Oh, ready to go.
So I invite you to be a part of the study.
Of course.
We're actually ready to go, and just to add to what Dr. Toussey said, we'll be having a national regional conference at the University of the Southern Caribbean on religion and health as a part of the process of them sharing the information with the public. And so we're ready to go.
Yeah.
We're ready
and
to
when
go.
is that conference, Doctor?
That is later in the year.
Later in the year.
And we'll come back and share when that conference happens.
Of course.
Yes.
Well, let me thank you so much for coming. Keisha, quickly before you go, remind us of the Facebook page to get more info.
Sure. For more information, you can email me at akeisha@yahoo.com. That is AKEISHAALEXIS@yahoo.com. Or you can visit our Facebook page, that is the Caribbean Self-Forgiveness and Flourishing Project, and you can get information there as well.
Well, let me thank you so much for coming in. As Dr. Colwick mentioned, we will have you back again for that conference. But let me thank, of course, Dr. Toussaint, who was joining us from the U.S., of course, from Luther College. We also had Dr. Colwick Wilson, president of USC, and we also had an adjunct lecturer as well from USC, Mrs. Akisha Alexis St-Hilaire. And we were all talking about self-forgiveness and that very, very important research that's coming up soon. On the Now Morning Show, we're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.
We are stand, oh yeah.